Right, my dear children. Now, in the earlier chapter, we discussed about the excretory substances and the process of excretion. So, within this chapter, we'll be discussing about the urinary system, right? So, in this chapter, we'll be discussing about the urinary system. So, here you are given with a topic, the urinary system. So, during the chemical reactions which take place in human body, in human body cells, right? Not in the human body, actually in human body cells. So, during the chemical reactions which take place in the human body cells, nitrogenous byproducts are getting produced, right? Nitrogenous byproducts are produced. Nitrogenous byproducts means here these byproducts or here these excretory products contain nitrogen. Okay, so here these nitrogenous byproducts are excreted from the body through kidneys as urine. So these nitrogenous byproducts which are getting created within the body is expelled mainly as urine which is getting processed from the kidneys. So in the earlier chapter also we discussed these things, right? Okay. The urinary system is considered as the main nitrogenous excretory system of the human body. So, my dear children, the main system which is going to process the nitrogenous excretion is the urinary system. In the urinary system, mainly kidneys are the organs which helps to process out these nitrogenous excretory materials like urea and uric acid. So, my dear children, here the urinary system is the main system which helps in order to remove nitrogenous waste materials from our body, nitrogenous excretory materials from our body. Right then, so let's see what are our other contents here. So now we are about to identify the parts of human urinary system. So identifying the parts of human urinary system. So the materials which you need, okay, materials which you need in this simple process is you will be needing a simulation. Now you know that in these days there are different types of softwares which we can utilize, and by using these softwares we can identify the special organs, systems and their functions, right? Different kinds of nerves, valves, all of these things are contained in these things, right? And we can identify their anatomy, their structures, how they have been formed, what's the location of these things in our body. So like that way different ideas could be observed. So what you have to do is you have to find out a structure or else a figure, a cross section. If you can't find any of these things, you can directly refer your textbook, my dear children. Within the textbook also there is a cross section of the kidney is given, plus the main parts of the urinary system is given as a diagram. So my dear children, what you have to do, you have to find out a simulation, a software, a cross section of the urinary system to identify the main parts. Okay, right? So you will be needing a diagram, right? A diagram, comma structure, diagram comma structure, or a simulation. Simulation means a special kind of a software right? Simulation related to urinary system. This is the main material you need. You can find a diagram or else a structure like a plastic structure. If you can find out a plastic structure, then you can use that one as well, or else a computer simulation, a software to get a clear image, a 3D image of the urinary system. So you'll be needing at least one of these materials in this process. Okay, so let's see what is the method of doing our simple bit of experiment or the process. So method is really simple. What you have to do, you have to get the simulation or the structure and identify the main parts and identify the location of the urinary system. Then get a diagram. Okay, you have to get a diagram also. Then identify the main parts contained within the urinary system. It's easy to get a diagram and to identify main parts. In order to find out the structures and also their nature and to find out the location, you can use the simulation or else the plastic structure. But however, it's quite easy to use a diagram to identify the parts and the components contained within the urinary system, my dear children. So, we'll use the simulation or the structure in order to identify the nature and the location of the urinary system. Okay, to identify the main components and parts, we'll use that cross section or else that diagram. Okay, we'll use that diagram. So the diagram is given in your textbook. You can refer that one, right? I'm also going to use both the things in here, right? A simulation, a 3D image, so that you can show the location very clearly. And once again, I'm going to use a diagram as well to explain the components. Okay, so we'll explain the method. We'll write down the method of doing this thing then. Get the structure comma simulation. Get the structure comma simulation. Get the structure comma simulation and observe the nature comma location in the location of the urinary system. So first of all, you have to get the structure, that if you have a plastic structure, if you have that kind of a plastic structure, then you have to first of all take that one. You have to get that one, or else you can use a computer simulation or else a software, right, that has these urinary systems. So get that structure or the simulation and observe the nature comma location of the urinary system. So you have to observe the nature of it and you have to observe the location, right? Then after that, get a diagram, or else a cross section, right? Cross section diagram is more convenient in here. Okay, so that thing is given in your textbook also. So get a diagram or else a cross section and observe it very well. and observe it very well. Identify main parts and components in the urinary system. So it's really simple to do this activity. What you have to do, you have to get a structure, you have to find out a structure, plastic structure, or else a computer simulation plus a diagram of a urinary system, right, of an urinary system. Then after that, you have to first of all take the structure or the computer simulation and you have to identify the nature and the location of the urinary system. Then after that, you have to take that diagram, right, or the cross section. Then identify the special components and the parts contained in the urinary system. So this is how to do this activity, right? So what I'm going to do is right now, I'm going to use a 3D structure, a computer structure to show the location and the nature of the urinary system for you guys. Okay. So first of all, we'll refer that diagram. Okay. We'll refer that 3D figure so that you can get a sound knowledge about the structure and the location of the urinary system. Then we'll once again come back to our class to identify the main parts component or main parts or the components contained in the urinary system, my dear children. So let's head on to our special special area so that we can discuss about the urinary system with those special diagrams and special simulation. Okay, so let's head on to there and we'll get a good sound knowledge about the nature and the structure, and we'll once again come back to identify the main parts. Okay, my dear children, now this is the 3D simulation of our urinary system. So within the urinary system, first of all, you can observe the pair of kidneys at the either sides like this, right? Then after that, here you can clearly observe the ureters which are coming towards the bladder from the kidneys, right? So I'm going to zoom in. See the ureters. These are the ureters. And my dear children, now I'm going to remove these extra parts so that you can see these structures very clearly. You can see the bladder. I'm going to remove these extra parts in here, right? Okay. Right, my dear children, now you can see the bladder in here. See, now you can clearly observe the urinary bladder and the urethra. So let's remove the other parts as well. Right. So now in here, this figure, you can observe the urethra and this is the urethra and the urinary bladder, right? So you can get a more clearer look at the urinary bladder plus the urethra in here. Right, my dear children? So here, this is the structure that we can observe in the urinary system. Right. See, the two kidneys. These are the ones, or these are the ones which are referred as the ureters. So I'll remove these stuff. Right. I'll remove these muscles in order to get a more good look at the components. Right. See, my dear children, now here you can observe a good look. See, now you can get a good look about the location and the parts contained in the urinary system of a human being. See, the two kidneys, then the bladder. Right, so this is the maximum which I can remove. So now you can see very clearly. Right, now you can see very clearly. So this is the right, we'll remove these ones as well. Right, so now you can clearly observe the structure of the kidney and the urinary system. See, right, you can see it very clearly in here. So here you can observe the ureters. This is the bladder and the urethra. So here it's clearly the two kidneys are located at the either sides of the spinal and the spinal cord, right? See, spinal, at the either side of the spinal you can observe the two kidneys which are in the bean shape, right? So my dear children, this is the structure of the human urinary system, right? So once again we'll head on to our classroom and let's identify the components, right? Let's head on to the classroom and let's identify the components once again by using a diagram, by using a figure, right? So these are the components in a 3D structure. So let's head on to the classroom and once again we'll identify the components contained in the urinary system, right? Okay, my dear children, so I took that simulation process of the 3D structure and I showed you how does the kidneys are arranged in our body and how does the urinary system arranged in our body, right? So I hope that you found out somewhat more or somewhat explained somewhat more explained way to find out the, or somewhat explained information about the urinary system, right? So now you are given with a figure, a cross section, right, in order to identify the main parts contained in the urinary system. So we'll head on to the diagram and let's see what are the main parts contained in the urinary system, right? So in the 3D structure also you could observe these things, but it was in the 3D nature, so therefore it somewhat difficult to identify these main parts. However, this is the larger diagram. So here you can observe the main parts. So first of all, blood is coming from the aorta. Aorta is the main artery that's going to produce, that's going to distribute blood all over the body, right? So from aorta there is the renal artery which is coming to left and right kidneys. Okay, the renal artery. So here you can observe that renal artery thing. So from aorta by renal arteries, blood is supplied to the left and right kidneys, okay, by the renal artery. So blood is supplied to the kidney by renal artery, okay, and the renal artery is directly getting connected with here like this. It's, you can see renal artery is getting connected with the aorta. Okay, so you can observe the right and left kidneys in here. After that, then you can observe the ureters or the urinary tracts. Ureters are the ones which helps to transport produced urine towards the bladder, or the urinary bladder. Then after that, from urinary bladder through the urethra, these excretory substances, the form is urine, is getting expelled from our body, right? Then whatever the leftover part or whatever the filtration should be once again provided to the blood, right? The blood which is coming from aorta is directing towards the left and right kidneys through the renal artery. Then after that, the filtration process is going to occur and they are going to expel all the excretory substances like urea, uric acid, and all of these things are getting expelled from the kidney, and those substances are coming towards the bladder through the ureters, right? So that's the filtered out substance, right? That's the filtered out waste substance. So what happens with the other part? These substances, that blood which is not coming through here, should be once again supplied to the blood within our body. So in order to do that, our kidneys have two other veins which are referred as renal veins. So whatever the product which is getting created here after the filtration process is provided to the renal veins once again and getting mixed with the blood and distributed to the body. Okay, so it's like a filtration process, but blood is getting filtered, removal of waste materials, then whatever the residue or the whatever the residue or else the filtered out one, okay, that part is once again added to the blood. The urine which is created is getting expelled from the body as the form of urine, right? So this is how the filtration works. to supply blood during the filtration process, renal arteries are the ones which is going to help, and whatever the leftover after the filtration process is once again provided to the blood by the renal veins. Okay, by the renal veins. So that's how this mechanism is going to work. So you can identify these main parts, right, in the urinary system. So urinary system consists of 4 main parts. Those 4 main parts are our kidneys, the 2 kidneys, the ureter, bladder, and the urethra. The 4 main parts. Kidneys, filtration process, ureter, transportation of urine, filtered urine towards the bladder, bladder, storage of these things temporarily, urethra, removal or expelling out. Okay, so these are the 4 main parts that we can observe in the urinary system, right, my dear children? So urinary system of human, as shown in the figure. So here this is the figure, right, as shown in the figure. Place your hands on your hips, then the tips of your thumbs give and indicate the lower end of kidneys. So if you place your arms like this, gently keep them behind like this, and put your 2 thumbs like this in your body. By that way you can, so I'm going to show you here, it's like this, right, like this. See, it's really simple, like this. So by that way you can find out the lower end, right? You can find out the lower end of the kidneys. That's the level which the kidneys are located in your body, the lower end. Okay, so as shown in the figure, place your hands on your hips, then the tips of your thumbs give and indicate the lower end, the end of the kidneys, like this. So kidneys reside against the back muscle in the upper abdominal cavity. They sit opposite each other on either side of the spine. The right kidney is a little bit lower than the left kidney to accommodate the liver, right? So see, this is somewhat important. If you take the right kidney is a little bit lower than the left kidney to accommodate the liver. Okay, to accommodate the liver, right kidney is somewhat lower than the left kidney. So these are the important facts, right? These are the important facts that we can observe in our urinary system. Okay, my dear children. So this is the if you take the locations like this, and there are 2 kidneys. So here specialty is that kidneys reside against the back muscle in the upper abdominal cavity, and they sit opposite each other on either sides of the spine, right? On the spine at the either sides, they sit opposite to each other. Then after that, the right kidney is little bit lower than the left kidney to facilitate the location of liver. So these are the special things, special points which we can identify within the urinary system. Okay, so let's move on with the next thing. So here you are given with a somewhat clearer image from the kidney, right? So if you take the kidney, it's like this, right? The structure of human kidney is like this in simple. There are vast amount of blood capillaries which is coming towards the kidney, and my dear children, there are there's a like blackish color, blackish red color nature. If you take the structure of a kidney, it has a blackish red color nature, right? And you can observe the renal artery and the renal vein in here. Renal artery is the one which is going to supply blood into the kidney, and by the renal vein, the leftover part after the filtration process is once again reabsorbed to the blood, right? So renal artery and renal vein. Renal artery is supplying blood while the renal vein is going to remove the blood out of the kidney. Okay. So this is how the structure of a kidney, or this is how the kidney is being located in your body, right? It has a blackish red color nature. Okay. So you are given with a point, in an adult, each kidney is about 13 centimeter long and 6 centimeter wide. So if you take the kidney, it is actually a size, like in a size of a ruler, a long ruler, right? Not that much of a long ruler. Actually, you know that in a ruler, there is about 12 to 15 centimeters, right? So in a size of a ruler, right? The size of a ruler, there are 6 inches and it's like about 15 centimeters. It's about 15 centimeters. So even it's like actually smaller than the ruler, right? The length is even smaller than the ruler. If you take a normal ruler, it has 15 centimeters. So nearly about 15 centimeters, a normal ruler, 6-inch ruler. So here, right, if you take the ruler, the kidney, length of the kidney is even smaller than the ruler. So it's about 13 centimeters long and it's about 6 centimeters wide, right? It's about 6 centimeters wide. Okay. So kidneys are bean-shaped organs. It has a bean shape, right? Bean seed shape. It has a bean seed shape. So you can observe it's like a bean, right? So kidneys are bean-shaped organs. Observe the figure to get an idea about the external structure then. So we have observed it. We have took some kind of a idea about the structure of the kidney. So they are like bean-shaped structure. They have a bean-shaped structure like this. And also, my dear children, they have a blackish red color nature, right? They have a blackish red color nature. So this is the structure of a kidney. So we'll head on to see what are the other contents. So the renal artery supplies blood to the kidney while the renal vein carries away the blood from kidneys. So we discussed this thing earlier. I told you, I explained that renal artery is the one which helps to provide blood into the kidney while renal veins are going to carry blood away from the 2 kidneys. Okay. So you can identify the renal vein and renal artery in here. This somewhat thicker one, right? That one is the here. You can observe the renal artery and below it you can identify the renal vein. Okay. Renal artery and renal vein are the ones which going to help to transfer blood in and out of the kidneys. Okay. So renal artery is going to supply blood into the kidney while renal vein is going to supply, or it's going to distribute blood away from the kidneys. It's going to carry blood away from the kidneys. So these are the 2 structures that we can observe, or the 2 main valves, blood valves that we can observe within a kidney, right? So once again, my dear children, now we identified about the external appearance, structure, the main components that we can observe within the urinary system, right? And we know that within the urinary system, the main organ contained is the kidney. So in the earlier slide, you could observe a good figure, somewhat an accurate figure to identify the structure and the nature of the kidney. We just looked that thing by outside, my dear children. Now we are going to investigate the interior structure of a kidney, right? We are going to study about the interior structure of a kidney. So once again, to identify the components and the things contained interior to the kidney, we have to get a simulation or else a structure and a diagram of the interior structure, right? We need to get a diagram of the interior structure. So here within this activity we will be investigating or studying about the internal structure of a kidney. So to get the internal structure we'll be needing a diagram or else a simulation of internal structure. Okay, so diagram, simulation of the internal structure. Internal structure of a kidney, right? We need both the things. Okay, it's good to have both the things, but if you don't have a simulation you can find out just a diagram, but it's good to have both the things, right? By using the simulation we can identify, or we can rotate here and there, and we can get a good look at the surroundings within the, to identify the structures. Okay, then if you take a diagram you can identify the components. A cross section would be great, right? So to identify the components and the factors or whatever the component contained within the kidneys. So this is the material, these are the materials that you need when you are doing this activity, right? So let's see how to do this thing. So it's really simple. What you have to do, once again, like in the previous case, we have to identify or we have to get these parts or get these materials and identify their parts and the location and the nature, right, of the kidney, right? So it's really simple. Then after that, once again we are going to come with a diagram and to identify these parts once again. Okay, so let's see the method. So my dear children, method is really simple. What you have to do, get the structure, comma simulation, and observe it carefully, to identify inner model of the kidney, Then next point, get the cross section, diagram and observe the cross section diagram, observe and identify main parts. In the kidney. So this is the way of doing the activity, my dear children, right? So once again we'll head on to that special area and we'll identify, right, the special things inside the structure of a kidney. Okay, my dear children, now in this figure or in this 3D structure, you can observe the interior structure of a kidney. Here I have used a simple structure like this so that you can see whole urinary system with the renal artery and the renal veins and so on with the other facts as well. So to include all the facts, I have used this figure. I'm going to show you another different figure. So here you can observe the bladder. These are the ureters which are coming from the kidneys. Now I'm going to enlarge this one. Right, so when I'm going to enlarge this figure, you can see clearly within this figure. Let's remove these things. Right, so here now you can clearly observe, my dear children, the structure, the inner structure of the kidney. See, so you can observe the renal pyramids very clearly in these areas. See, and the pelvic region and the ureter which is starting, right? And you can observe the main valves which is blood, which the blood is getting produced. This red color one is the one which is going to produce the blood inside to the kidney. This is referred as the renal artery, and this blue color one is the renal vein. Renal vein is the one which is going to reabsorb the filtration, right? Filtered, not the filtered one, the remainder. After the filtration process, the blood is getting remained within the kidney, no? So those things are being reabsorbed by the renal vein and supplied to the blood once again. So my dear children, here you can observe the renal vein. This is the renal vein, this one, right? The renal vein. So see how it runs through the kidney. And this one is referred as the renal artery. That's the one which is going to supply blood into the body, into the kidney. So the renal artery, see how it runs. So this is the renal vein. This one is the renal vein. So here you can observe renal pyramids, and this is the pelvic region, right? So here, this is the pelvic region. This one, this white color area, that is the pelvic region. These smaller boxes are the, right, these smaller boxes, these ones are the renal pyramids. So here you can get a very fine, better look at the structure of the kidney. Right, so my dear children, this pelvic region once again is connected to the ureter. This tube is the ureter. So I can minimize this figure and I can show you how does the ureter is going to run towards the urinary bladder. See, it's running towards the urinary bladder. See, now it's at the bladder, that light blue color one. This is the, right, this one is the, see, this one, that is the ureter. It's running towards the bladder over here. Right, so this is the inner structure of the kidney and the appearance, the outer appearance of a human kidney. So I'm going to use a different color figure once again to show the cross section of a kidney, right? So this is much more better image rather than the previous one. So here you can observe the pelvic region, renal pyramids, medulla and the cortex very clearly, right? See, right, my dear children? So here, so this is our urinary system then. Right, so this is the bladder, and this part is the urethra, and these are the ureters, right? So this is how our, right, this is how our urinary system looks like. See, you can observe the kidneys which are in bean shape. See, can see it very clearly. Okay, right then. So once again, I'm going to take the structure over to here, and I'm going to show you the interior part, right? Let's enlarge and see the interior part. Yes, now let's enlarge the figure so that you can get a better look. Right, so this is the interior structure of the kidney once again, right? So you can clearly observe the cortex and the medulla parts, okay? Right. So my dear children, we identified the interior structure and their special components. So let's head on to the classroom once again, and we'll discuss what are the things contained within these each of the parts. Right, my dear children. So we observed the 3D structure or the computer simulation, and we identified the nature and the structure of the interior parts contained in a kidney. Right then, so let's move on to observe the cross section or the longitudinal section. Here also a longitudinal section is given. Cross section means if you cut it like this, it's a cross section. If you cut it like along the vertical axis, it's a longitudinal section. So here you can observe a longitudinal section. We have to get a longitudinal section to observe the interior parts. So here you can observe these main parts within the longitudinal section of a kidney. You can observe the areas called renal medulla, right? And the renal cortex. Apart from the renal medulla, you can observe the renal cortex in here, the outer area. Then after that, you can observe once again here more clearer images given to identify the renal artery and the renal vein, right? The red color one is the renal artery. Normally we represent arteries by using the red color, and the blue one is the renal vein, right? So renal artery and the renal vein. So there is an area called the pelvis or the renal pelvis, right? Here you can observe the renal pelvis. So if you check very clearly, these medulla parts are connected with the pelvis, okay? Then after that, pelvis is going to run through the ureter, or pelvis is going to come towards the ureter. Ureter, you know that that's the valve, right? That's the tube which going to help transportation of urine. So these are the main parts that we can observe inside the kidney, right? You can observe the renal medulla, renal cortex, then once again the renal arteries and the renal veins. Then you can observe the pelvis, right? Pelvic region, pelvis region. Then after that, pelvis is coming towards the ureter, right? So this is the main structure when we can observe, these are the main structures that we can observe during the observation of a longitudinal section in a kidney, right? Okay then. So my dear children, once again, we can observe two main parts inside a kidney, right? We can observe two main parts inside a kidney. If you take a kidney, we can observe these two main parts. What are those two? Number one, we can observe the cortex, right? We can observe the renal cortex or the cortex of a kidney, right? Cortex of the kidney. Then after that, we can observe the medulla part, right? Renal medulla or the medulla part of the kidney. So these are the two major parts that we can observe within a kidney. So within a kidney, there are two major parts, two main parts, cortex and the medulla. So cortex, here you can observe the cortex area, right? So cortex area, here you can observe that cortex area. See the cortex area, and within the cortex area, like there, it's like a triangular shape ones, like pyramid shape ones. These things are referred as the medulla, right? Medulla parts. So these are the two major parts or the components that we can identify within the inner structure of a kidney. Okay then. So let's see what are the other contents that we can observe, right? So what are the other contents that we can see or observe within the cortex and medulla? Renal cortex consists of blood capillaries. Renal cortex consists of lot of blood capillaries. So cortex has very large number of blood capillaries. Capillaries are the ones which are going to carry blood within the organs. Blood capillaries are very small, right? If you take the normal size of a blood valve, capillaries are the smallest ones. Okay, capillaries are the smallest, right? These are the smallest valves that we can observe within the body of an organism. So renal cortex consists of lot of blood capillaries. Therefore, it is dark in color. So my dear children, in the earlier case, I told you that usually when you take the color of a kidney, it has a blackish red color. It's because of the cortex area. See, it's because of the cortex area. Cortex area contains lot of blood capillaries. So therefore, it is dark in color, right? Within the renal medulla, there are triangular shaped structures called renal pyramids. The tips of these renal pyramids are directed to the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis narrows and open into the upper end of the ureter. Right, so I have explained this thing when we are discussing about the longitudinal structure of a kidney. So it's really simple. Here, these areas within the kidney, right? These areas within the kidney, my dear children, are called as, right? These things are called as, so these are ones which are in the shape of a pyramid, right? So all of these areas within the kidney is commonly referred as the renal medulla. So within the renal medulla, you can observe these like pyramid shapes, these structures in the pyramid shape. See, structures in the pyramid shape. So within the renal medulla, there are triangular shaped structures. You know that if you take a triangle, right? If you take a pyramid, it's shape of a triangle, right? So pyramid shape structures can be, or triangular shape structures can be observed, which are called as the renal pyramids, right? They are referred as renal pyramids, these structures. The tips of these renal pyramids are directed to the pelvis. See, these are directed towards the pelvis. In the earlier case also, I told you this thing, right? The tips of these renal pyramids are directed towards the renal pelvis. renal pelvis narrows and open into the upper end of the ureter. So once again, it's going to open and connect with the ureter like this, right? So this is the inner structure and the nature of the inner structure in a kidney, my dear children, right? So simple. You can see that it's not that much of a big deal. You can see the arrangement and the nature and the structure is somewhat, right? It's not complicated, it's somewhat simple. So this is how the longitudinal section, or when you observe the longitudinal section, this is how the kidney is located, or the main parts contained in the kidney. Right then, blood with excretory products. Now you know that there is blood. Blood is the one which is going to carry excretory products. I mean, like, all the substances are getting transported by blood, no? So blood is the one which is going to carry all the products contained in these, all the products which are getting contained or which needed for our body is getting transported all around the body by using the blood. If you take these substances, I can give you simple examples like glucose, water, proteins, medication, hormones, steroids, whatever the material is getting dissolved within the blood and transported all around the body. So my dear children, excretory substances, excretory materials are also going to dissolve within the blood. Then blood is going to carry excretory substances towards the kidney, especially through the renal artery. So here, blood with excretory products transported by renal arteries is filtered. Now is filtered. My dear children, I told you that in the earlier case also, kidneys are going to filter the blood, right? And remove the excretory products which are getting created or which are getting produced during the biochemical reactions within our cells, right? So those excretory substances are getting mixed with the blood, then blood is getting transported towards the kidney, then by the kidney, these things are getting filtered down and excretory products are getting expelled from our body. So blood with excretory products transported by renal arteries is filtered in the kidneys. The filtered excretory products are carried by the ureter to the bladder and they are temporarily stored in the bladder. The fluid with excretory products is known as urine. So my dear children, after the filtration process, these excretory products are going to travel towards the pelvic region and after that towards the ureter to the bladder, right? Towards the ureter, then that after that ureter is going to transport these substances to the bladder. Okay, so this fluid or this liquid which is getting filtered by the kidney and which is transported towards the bladder is referred as urine. This is the one which is referred as urine. Okay, so my dear children, all the excretory substances filtered out from the kidney is contained within urine, right? It is contained within urine. Okay, so the fluid with excretory products is known as the urine. Then this urine is temporarily stored in the bladder. Then after that, when the needful time is going to come, when the bladder is full, right, a person need to urinate and remove these excretory products from the body. So that's how this whole process is going to work, right? Okay, right then. So my dear children, let's identify what are the things contained mainly within urine? So you know that mainly our kidneys are going to produce nitrogenous based excretory substances. So these excretory substances are removed from the kidneys and getting collected within the bladder. This fluid or this liquid is the one which is referred as urine. So within urine you can observe, right, within urine you can observe mainly water. Mainly you can observe more water, about 90%. About 90% of urine is water. Then after that you can observe that nitrogenous byproducts like urea, uric acid, different salts, right? So these substances can be observed within the urine. So my dear children, let's see the composition of urine. So urine is mainly made up with what? Water. Main component contained, like 90% of the urine is contained, 90% of urine is containing water. So my dear children, we can write the first and foremost component of urine is water, right? Water. Then after that we can observe urea, right? Urea, water. And after that uric acid. Then finally you will know that within our, right, within our urine, right, within the urine, except for these things, there is some amount of salt. So salts are the fourth excretory substance contained within urine. So these are the main parts that we can observe within urine. Urine contains water, uric acid, urea and different types of salts. Okay. So this is the composition of urine, right? So 90% of urine actually is made up with more than 90%, about 90% or more than 90% we can say, right? More than 90% of water, more than 90% of urine is made up with water. So water is the main component contained within the urine. Then after that you can observe urea, uric acid plus different types of salts. Okay, different types of salts. Okay then. See, you are given with the components here. For your extra knowledge, my dear children, this is the percentage. See, components of urine of a healthy person is given below as a percentage in here. So like I told you, water. So about 96%. So I told you in the earlier case also, it's more than 90%. So if you take to a percentage, it's about 96%. Actually, like almost all the things is water, right? 96% means if you take 100 milliliters of urine, right? If you take 100 milliliters of urine, 96 milliliters out of this 100 is water, right? 96 milliliters out of this 100 is water. So water is the main component contained within the urine, my dear children. So 96%, about 96% is water in urine, right? So the main excretory product created or expelled by the kidney is water, right? Water. It's going to produce some amount of nitrogenous waste as well, but however, when compared to water, it's very less. Then after that, if you take urea, right? Urea about 2%, right? Urea about 2%. So about 2% we can observe urea within urine. Then after that, there are different types of salts. Different types of salts contained within urine, and about 2% of these substances or excretory products are salts, right? So this is the main composition of urine, 96% water, and you can observe urea about 2% and salts about 2%. So my dear children, then what happens with the uric acid? So here it is given that uric acid can be observed only in trace amounts. It's a main component contained within the urine. However, it is observed only in trace amounts. Trace means very less amounts. Like if you take into a percentage, we can't even count those things. So that's why here 2%, 96%, 100% is coming out when you add the main three components: salts, water and urea. Okay. However, there is very small amount of uric acid is contained, but when you take into a percentage, it's neglectable. That's why it is referred as that's why it is given as trace amounts. So in trace amounts, we can observe uric acid within our urine. Okay. So this is, my dear children, is the composition of the urine, right? This is the composition of the urine in a healthy person, right? This is in a healthy person only. So above mentioned values and color of the urine are important in diagnosing kidney diseases. So when you are diagnosing some kidney diseases, we are going to calculate the percentage and the color of the urine, right? If the color is dark, then there is a problem with the urine. If the color is like light yellow, pale, or white in color, or else colorless, then your kidneys are working well, right? And your urinary system is very healthy. Okay, it's very healthy. So my dear children, these percentages and the color of the urine is going to change from person to person according to their health, right? According to their health, these percentages and the colors are going to change. However, the main components that should be contained within the urine should be these four substances only. But if you take unhealthy people, like if a patient is suffering from diabetes, in diabetes patients, right, with the urine, glucose is getting passed out. Means that apart from these substances, there is glucose also. Okay, so it's not good to pass glucose. Actually, during the reabsorption process, right, during the reabsorption process, 100% of the glucose should be reabsorbed and should be provided to the blood. 100%. Not even a single drop of glucose is getting entered to the urine. All of these things, all of glucose is getting reabsorbed by the kidney during the filtration process. Only urea, uric acid, water and salts getting expelled from the kidney, right? So if the kidney is not working well, if the kidney has got failed, if there are issues with the kidney, then in that kind of a case, my dear children, glucose may get added with the substances or the excretory substances. So it's not a good sign, right? It's terrible situation for a kidney, because kidney should absorb all of these things, all of glucose, and it should resupply to the blood itself. So if glucose is going to pass out with the urine, then my dear children, there is a problem in your kidney. So we have to get some medication. We have to go to a doctor and follow up with the precautionary methods and health advisors given by him to have a good pair of kidneys, right? So it's really important to concern about the percentages, and really important to consider about the color of the urine in order to have a healthy pair of kidneys, right, my dear children? So this is the composition of urine. So we have identified about the composition, the contents in urine with their percentages and the main with the main components. Okay, then finally it is given, when the bladder is full, a person urinates through the urethra to eliminate the waste. So finally, when these all of these substances are getting expelled from our body, when a person is going to urinate through the urethra, right? So that's why I told you that this urine is getting temporarily collected within the bladder, then after that getting expelled from the body. That's it. Okay, so this is how the process of urinary system is going to work. This is how the kidneys are going to produce urine, and this is how expelling of urine is going to happen from our body. So remember, my dear children, the main component contained within urine is water. 96% is water. Then other factors are urea, uric acid, salts. So here is uric acid can be observed only in trace amounts. Then finally, when person is going to urinate through the urethra, all of these waste products are expelled out from the body, right? So urine is temporarily stored in the bladder. However, when a person is going to urinate, all of these urine is going to pass out from our body. So this is how excretory products which are getting created by the kidney is getting expelled from our body as the form of urine. Right then. So my dear children, we took a sound knowledge about the structure of a kidney, components contained within a kidney, inner structure of a kidney, outer structure of a kidney, length, width, and the location. So we took a very vast knowledge about the kidneys. Then in the earlier part we discussed about the ureters, then the structure of a urinary system which contains the ureters, kidneys, the urinary bladder and the urethra. So like that way we got a sound knowledge how the urinary system is going to work, how the process of eliminating waste materials is going to work within the urinary system, and what are these waste materials created during the process of blood filtration, right? And how this urine is going to expel from our body or eliminate from our body. So my dear children, now in the next chapter we'll discuss about the things or the diseases associated with the urinary system and the kidneys. Okay, so we'll get to know some diseases and the disease conditions that associate with the kidneys and ureters in our next chapter. So I'll hope you to meet all of you from our next chapter.